I'll give you the details and I'll share with you the statistics. But please keep in mind that what I'm about to tell you is based in facts, but it might sound like a good old-fashioned rant. If you don't like it, well, get off my lawn! You're listening to Idea Charger Radio. Hey there, Success Chargers. Welcome back to episode 32 of the program. All right, so I gave you the heads up. Today's going to sound a little bit ranty, but let me tell you, I've been doing a little bit of research. You see, coming up in May, it's going to be, let's see, it's the 11th, 12th, 13th. There is a huge event for human resource professionals that's happening right here in Houston, Texas, where I'm based. And I have the privilege this year of going back. I realized I spoke at that conference a few years back, and due to some scheduling conflicts, couldn't make it the last couple of years. But this year, I'm going back, and I'm not doing just one. I'm doing 2 sessions. And let me tell you, I'm really, really stoked. The first one is going to be a traditional breakout session, which we're going to talk about some of that in a minute. Because as I've been doing some research to get ready for that presentation, I've stumbled across some facts that really... I finally have the facts to back up what I've suspected for quite some time. And I think there's a very big problem that's going on in the workforce today that could be solved if people would really pay attention to you. Yeah, you. We'll talk about that one in a minute. The second session, though, that I'm doing at the HR Gulf Coast Symposium. What a big fancy name that is. It's basically the local chapter of Human Resource Professionals. Used to be affiliated solely, I think, with SHRM, Society for Human Resource Managers. But there's another group now, HCI. Oh, I really should know that before I go to the conference. Yeah, I'll be working on that one. But there's another group, another governing body, if you will, that has some additional certifications for HR professionals. And let me tell you, whichever organization or whichever governing body you tend to favor, if you have an opinion on the subject, let me tell you, I have a really cool job and I get the opportunity to really partner with and get to know a whole lot of HR pros all over the country in a variety of companies. And let me tell you, these are some of the most underappreciated, helpful resources that you can imagine in your organizations. You know, days of old, people used to say, oh, it's HR. Before that, they called them personnel. That was even worse, right? So demeaning. Let me tell you, these are some great folks. And I've had the opportunity to work with some fantastic people in this field that really are good at what they do. Everything from making sure that you get the most bang for your buck on benefits. You can say what you want about benefits in this country. You can say what you want about benefits wherever you are. But I will tell you that the people that really take their job serious, that is to make sure that you have the best retirement plans, healthcare benefits, and other perks that you have in your world. Let me tell you, they are great, great folks. And I'm not just saying that because my sister's one of those, but she's pretty awesome. I gotta tell you the truth about that. But the other side of it is, there's a lot of other good people. I spent the first 12 years of my career in the financial services industry. I do a lot of work with groups, and actually am actively looking for some financial services teams to get together with. So if that's a field that you're in, and you'd like to have me come in, listen, give me a call, especially if you're within a short drive here in South Texas, Southeast Texas, Houston, Dallas area. Okay, so technically that's North Texas. You know what? I'm just going to open it up. If you're somewhere in the state of Texas and you'd like the chance for me to come in and work with your team a little bit, I'm actively doing some research in this field, and I'd really like to talk to you. So if you are a financial advisor, an insurance professional, a wholesaler, somebody who works in the annuity space, mutual funds, money management, any of those areas, please send me an email, podcast@ideacharger.com, or hit me up at ideacharger on the Twitter, or stop by facebook.com/successchargerpodcast and drop me a quick note, because I want to visit with you. I've got a couple of things that I'm in deep research mode for right now on behalf of a number of clients, and really want to visit with you. about that experience. So if that's you, let me know. Hey, let me get back to the topic really of today, because we're not doing an interview today. I was just too moved by what I found here today. But there's a group of you out there, and if this is you, just stick with me through this one, okay? Because you may get a little upset. You may be a little bit uncomfortable. You may feel like you're getting a little bit attacked here. And that's not my intent. Because I think that companies are really making a mistake here. And I want to make sure that your company is not one of them. And I want to make sure that you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. We've got some really big issues going on in industries today. I do a lot of work with oil and gas companies, and we're talking to a lot of leaders and talking to a lot of companies and organizations that really feel like, oh my gosh, we're about to lose a lot of knowledge through retirement in our organizations. Now, oil and gas, I'm based right here in Houston, Texas, and you call it the oil and gas capital of the world because there are a bazillion companies that are here, and we're feeling it here in the city. I've got some good friends, people that we know, neighbors, people we go to church with, some folks that friends and family that are all impacted by what's going on in the oil and gas space. And it's basically this: look, there's a downturn, and the money's not flowing as free as perhaps it had for some time. And one of the things that what that means is that companies typically will, in a down cycle like this, see an opportunity to say, you know what, we've got some folks that are pretty expensive on our payroll. That's one of our largest expenses. We could significantly reduce our headcount, and it would help us the most financially if we'd let some of the people go that we pay the most money to. Here's the challenge with that. When companies do that, they're letting go their people that have the deepest experience and knowledge within their organizations. And what we are starting to see is that there are a lot of people that are leaving organizations now, and good for them. You know, if you've worked a full career and you get to be in your 50s or 60s and someone comes to you and says, hey, how about an early retirement package? We're going to pay you to not come to work anymore. Let me tell you, I would sign up for that deal. I'm in my 40s. I'd sign up for that deal right now. If I could just ride my bike and spend more time with my family whenever the heck I wanted to, that would be phenomenal. But and never have to work again? Shoot, yeah, man, that'd be awesome. But, you know, you guys would miss me, and I'd miss you, and eventually we'd have to get back together. And well, anyway, that sounds like another story. But in any case, there's a brain drain that's going on. Now, about 10 years ago, I was involved with a young professionals group when I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, called YP Tulsa, Young Professionals of Tulsa. That particular group is gone, but there is another group that exists there today, Tulsa's Young Professionals. Yeah, I know it was a long story. It was complicated, but two groups, very similar names, but the purpose was the same. And that was to give young people a seat at the table. Now, this was a decade ago when we were doing this, okay? So this is like the mid-aughts, as I like to call it. So this is like 06, 07, 08, kind of in that time frame, when we were doing a lot of work to say, look, you've got some bright, talented people that are coming up in your organizations. We'd like to get a seat at the table. We think this city could be doing a lot more than it is to attract and retain young people. Oklahoma at that time, and maybe it's probably a little better today, but Oklahoma at that time wasn't really a destination spot for a lot of people. And it was a place that people would grow up there, and it's a great place to be from, and then they would leave. And, you know, I got to tell you, it's the efforts of what that YP Tulsa and Tulsa's Young Professionals groups did 10 years ago that laid the foundation for some really amazing stuff that's been happening in Tulsa now. Some good friends of mine helped put together a top-notch cycling event there called Tulsa Tough. It's become one of the most popular stops on the pro men's and women's racing circuit during the summer. It happens every June in Tulsa, and really, 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 I've never been to a place that throws as good a party and as big of a 3-day cycling event as you can imagine. And big part of that, you know, came from the efforts of some of the very people that were involved early on with that YP movement, young professional movement that was happening in Tulsa. The restaurant and bar scene has gotten incredible. The development that has happened downtown. The city, you know, rallied around a number of great people and built a new concert arena that attracts now big headliner names of people that never came to Tulsa when I lived there. And it was really cool. And I'm not saying that's all because of the young professionals, but I'm saying it's because some smart people took the opportunity to say, you know what, we need to make some changes to anticipate what's coming down the road. And if we don't start attracting people here, we don't find a way to retain our young people, man, they're all going to go somewhere else. And I will tell you that there are shows and attractions now that go to Tulsa. I mean, big headliner names, people that have never gone there, except maybe by accident or to make a quiet mentioned stop at the world famous Cain's Ballroom. And if you don't know about the Cain's, let me tell you, if you ever get a chance to go to a concert there, it is a special, special place. All right, so why am I telling you all that? I'm telling you because if you do the work first, the results will come. At least that's what my generation has already been told. Now, I was born firmly in the middle of what's now referred to as Generation X. And I've been looking around, though, at what's going on with these companies saying, look, our baby boomers, okay, the traditionalists are pretty well out. They've aged out of the workforce for the most part. There's a few, I can think of some people that I remember. I shouldn't laugh, but I can remember some people that long past their working prime continued to come to work for one reason or another. And these were the people that you just kind of didn't pay attention when they fell asleep at their desk. I can think of a couple. There was a money manager at a bank I used to work for that would sleep at his desk every afternoon for at least an hour after lunch. And I can just remember a number of things like that. I can remember an old, we brought this really old guy in one time at that same bank who had a lot of experience in the oil and gas business. And it was at a time that the bank was trying to build its oil and gas lending portfolio. And it was really funny because this guy came in and he was not politically correct. He was not somebody that understood the way of the big corporate environment. But he was dead gummit. He was effective at ginning up business, and he could pick up the phone. And they took an old conference room because everybody was in cubes. They took a conference room with a door and they put him in an office in there. And he could go in there and shut the door, and he would say stuff on the phone that would just make you blush. And a few hours later, somebody would show up or courier over a check to open an account or fill out some paperwork and make a loan. It was really funny. And he did it based on the depth of his relationships with people, right? We talk about connection a lot in my work. When I come visit with companies like yours and sit down and we go through workshops and we're doing some coaching, we're talking about how do you build relationships with your customers. And, we talk about that. Why? Because sometimes you've just got to get some business done. And when you can pick up the phone and cut through the BS and go straight to it and say, look, here's what I need. Here's what I can do. Here's what you need. Can I help you? That's when it gets really good. So you might kind of sense where I'm going with this, because if you pick up get online, go through a business magazine, read something in the in-flight magazine when you're flying somewhere. Everybody's talking about the dang millennials. The millennials. Let's talk about the millennials. Okay. Now, in full disclosure, I got to tell you, my wife technically is in the millennial generation, but she will tell you that she really was on she's kind of one of the the older end of the millennial workforce. Now, millennials we're going to define here. Let's see. Look, Pew Research Foundation. See, it's not just me. All right. Pew Research defines millennials this way. Let me get my numbers here. Okay. The millennial generation. All right. First of all, baby boomers were born from between roughly 1946 and 1964. So about an 18-year span there. Generation X from 65 to 1980. So that's a span of about 15 years. And then from 81 to 97, this is what we're calling the millennial generation. Now, my wife was born on the front end of that group, so she will tell you that she identifies with a kind of a later term Gen Xer than she feels like towards the millennials. Now, let me just put this in real terms for you. Forget about what year you were born. If you think about adults, okay, in 2015, that's when this statistic from Pew Research just sort of compiled the definition here. But Pew Research calls millennials between 1981 and 1997. Okay, let me put it in terms for you. In 1981, I would have been in about the second grade. And in 1997, I was in college. So stop and think about that for a minute. How much difference was there in you between the time you were in the second grade and the time you were in your freshman or sophomore year of college? Yeah, get your head around that. Okay, so everybody in that particular group, okay, so people, that's the difference. That's where I was in 1981 and where I was in 1987. So everybody born between the time I was in second grade until my sophomore year of college is being considered part of the millennial generation. Now, in 2015, that meant that people that were 18 to 34 years old. Now, that's the hot demographic. That's the demographic that marketers go after. Everybody's like, I want 18 to 34. You really want to make it good? You make it those hyper spending males or hyper, you know what? I guess it's with females too, because it's just different products that are going there. The 18 to 34, that's the guy that's buying, car stereos and electronics and gaming systems and all kinds of stuff. For a lot of the ladies out there, you're into fashion much more than us fellas, because man, we just didn't get it. At least not in my day and age. I look back at photos of me in high school and college, and somebody should have, man, it was not good. All right, but why do I tell you all of that? Well, during that same period of time, in 2015, everybody from 51 to 69 is kind of lumped together. Now that's a big swing too, right? I don't have that coming yet, but according to my dad, who's now in his 70s, he'll tell you there was a big difference between 51 and 69. Okay, especially in terms of what he knew and what he knows and what he continues to learn. My grandfather, we're so blessed. He's 99 years old. He laughs when he talks to my dad, and he says, "Oh, that's okay, son. For all you figured out, there's still a few surprises coming." And Dad says, "You got to tell me?" And he says, "No, I'm going to let you figure those out on your own because it's more fun for me." And I got to love a guy with a sense of humor like that. But let's just talk about that for a minute. There's a big difference in those generations. Let's stop and think about what you knew at 20, how smart you thought you were. How about when you're 30? Fast forward to 40. Now, I can only imagine what it's like if you're 50. Imagine what you'll have in terms of experience by the time you're 60, 70, 80, 99 years old, like my granddaddy. Okay, so why am I going through all this talk about generations? Well, let's talk about sheer numbers. In 2015, there were about 53.5 million millennials in the workforce compared to 52.7 million of Gen Xers. In 1995, the workforce composition kind of looked like this. About 31% of the workforce was Gen Xers. That's my generation. 49% were boomers. 18% were what they call the silent generation. We'll go ahead and add the other 2% of the greatest generation, which is before that. Let's just focus on boomers to Gen Xers. 49% of the workforce were boomers, 31% Gen Xers. Let's fast forward to the first quarter of 2015. So that's about a year ago. We take a look at that. Where now we've got about 29% of the workforce of boomers, 34% Gen Xers, and 34% millennials. Wow, and they even give a credit of 1% post-millennials. But right now, Gen Xers and millennials, 2015, let me just boil this down for you. Collectively, our generations are 68% of the workforce, with majority of the balance going to baby boomers. If you look at the workforce in the U.S. today, here's how it breaks down. About 3.7 million of the silent generation. See, there's a few of them around. If you're lucky enough to have some in your companies, go spend some time with them. They know a lot. They've seen a lot of changes in the workforce, and they can be a tremendous sense of knowledge for you. The boomers, they know a lot. Okay, since about 2010, 2011, they have no longer been the most populous group in the workforce, and they're steadily declining, but they're at 44.5 million workers in the U.S. labor force, almost identical in terms of numbers, and outnumbering the boomers now are the Gen Xers and millennials. Millennials, you've really come on strong. You brought a lot of people, but we're talking about Gen X is 52.7 million, and millennials, you're 53.5 million. Now, there's a lot of information that compiles, and I was having a conversation just the other week, And she said something to me in the course of that conversation that basically said, wow, I'm going to tell you what I've advised a lot of people that are about where you are in their career in a number of ways. And I was like, okay, well, what do you got there? And she said, you finally have aged in to your experience. And I thought that was an interesting phrase. Like, really, I've aged into my experience. She goes, yeah. She goes, you've experienced enough different things throughout your career. You've now been working long enough, and in my case, in a couple of different industries. She said, now you've got enough experience dealing with things that your perspective is quite different from somebody who has maybe theoretically or academically studied a lot of issues, but never really experienced them. And what I'm talking about here is that right now in organizations, the millennials are getting a whole lot of attention. I follow a lot of what's going on in the meetings and events industry. And as I watch the numbers, I mean, it's like every third article is millennial this, millennial that. What do millennials want? How to get millennials to come to your events? What do millennials care about? And I would tell you this. I made an image about it, and I've put it out on Twitter. I'll repost it again as a promo for this show. As it goes out. But I basically put together a phrase that says, look, let's stop enabling millennials and let's start engaging them. Hashtag all generations matter. Because let's think about this. Would you rather hand in sheer numbers, yes, there are as many people in your organizations today, for the most part, in Gen X as there are in the millennials. And there's more millennials coming, right? They're still coming out there. In your organizations today, you've got some smart people, these baby boomers, but they're going to take these retirement packages, folks. They're going to age out. They're going to decide, I don't need to keep coming in and putting up with this. It's not fun right now. In a lot of offices, there's not as much going on. Your highly technical people have too much time to sit around and think about technical stuff and not enough time doing stuff. And they're expensive to keep them around. And we're seeing that happen. But we don't need that knowledge to walk out the door with them. Now, what's going to happen is that the market is going to turn back in a positive direction. We're going to need some expertise we don't have, and we're going to go hire back all those people that we've just let go, or at least the best ones. We're going to pay them a lot of more money as a consultant to come back into our organizations, so they're going to be collecting retirement and getting paid as a consultant when they come back. Yeah, that's going to happen. It will. I've seen it happen before, and it'll happen again. Stop overlooking Gen X. Stop. Quit overlooking us. Our whole lives, we've been told we're next. Sit down and wait your turn. Now, a lot of people in my generation didn't take that very well. And what did we do? Well, we did what I've done. We cranked up our own business. We've gone out and we've tried to do something. Now, I've got some great friends, Gen Xers, who are doing quite well in a traditional role in very senior positions, CEOs, CFOs, C-level top, executives, running some great organizations. And my hat's off to you. Some days I feel like you're a lot smarter than me, and other days I'm glad for the flexibility I have in my world. But at the end of the day, we're all happy and we're all alive. We have great families and friends around us, and that's what really matters. But I will tell you, to the organizations that are saying, we got to figure out how to get these millennials in the door, don't overlook the people that have been with you all along. You've got some really bright people, some of whom they're tired of asking for their turn. And you know what's crazy? It's the same thing the baby boomers did when my generation showed up in the workplace for the first time too. Shaking their heads. Oh, these kids, what are they doing here? Pat them on the head. Good job. But here's the deal. These millennials that are coming into your workforce, they're freaking smart. They're really smart. Now, they come across as being really different, and they are. They're coming back and they're bringing values back. They're looking for something bigger than, I'm just going to show up, do my job, get paid, and go home. They don't have any interest in that. You're going to see that with some of your frontline contributors that never decided to become managers that are out in your workforce. We need those people too. We need those workhorses. They're good folks. But that's not going to be your millennials. They want to make sure that what they're doing is making a difference in the world somewhere. And it's because their parents, heaven forbid, some of those are Gen Xers, their parents have told them, you make a difference in the world, because the world's going to be different for you than it was for me. And it's different for every group. But I will tell you this, every generation grows up saying, I want it to be better for my kids than it was for me. Every single one of them. Some generations voice that greater than others. There are plenty of younger boomers and older Gen Xers who have turned into helicopter parents, which is the other extreme of I'm not going to tell you what to do, just figure it out for yourself, to I'm going to be right there with you. Hey, I've had 2 or 3 coaches and people that help me do what I do and, my whole life. And I always had a seat at the table, and every big decision that had to be made, I was a part of it. And these folks are showing up in your organizations, and you're not giving them a seat at the table. Look, we Gen Xers, we demanded a seat at the table when we created this young professional movement that went across the country. We weren't the first generation to do that, but we did it in a different way. And I'm telling you, 10 years later, I'm seeing some amazing results. And if you just use the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I don't live now, but when I go back, I'm just blown away when I look and see the development that's happened. And a lot of that, I'm going to say, could be credited back to my friend Elliot, who had the gumption and the grit to say, you know what, I'm going to invest a lot of money into this old building downtown to turn it into a really awesome, huge Irish pub, and it's going to work. And that's become the anchor restaurant for what he's built into this hospitality empire that has sprung up in Tulsa. And I'm super excited for what he's done because he's created opportunity for a lot of other people. He blazed the trail. There are plenty of others who are there, some of whom now serve on the city council. There are others who quietly do development deals kind of in the background. You may or may not know who they are. They may or may not care if you know who they are, but I will tell you they're making a difference in that city. And it's amazing to see what happens, and it's very visible. I'm saying that because it takes time for these things to play out. And it took some missteps. It took some learning. It took a little bit of a learning curve to get to where the Gen Xers in that community really got a foothold. But once they did, they were almost unstoppable. And if you look at your own organizations, you've got this group of people now that have got 20 years plus of experience in the workforce. Think about what they've seen in their working years. Since 1995, they graduated college in the mid-90s in kind of a economic time. That's a technical term, but a terrible economic time. We went through this incredible investment bubble that happened with the technology boom in the late 90s into the early 2000s. There was a bit of a hiccup, and then in 2001, the world got thrown on its ear. There was a little thing called 9/11 that changed the planet for the rest of us. That went on for a number of other years. We pretty much had recovered financially or economically from that by about 2004, but shortly after had a small little hiccup. And then by 2008-9, wow, the wheels just came off the bus one more time. And then we started to see this tremendous growth that was going again. And at least in my part of the world now, we're looking at oil and gas and saying, here we go. We're seeing a big fall off in oil and gas for the first time since the mid 1980s. It's just wild to think about what's happened in the lifetime there. But what was going on for these millennials? They don't know. Their moms and dads were dealing with some of this kind of stuff. Their aunts and uncles, their family members. They were too busy to notice what was going on because they were being shuttled to 12,000 after-school events and competitive sports teams and all kinds of stuff they did. Again, I'm not hating on the millennials. Gosh, I stayed really busy through high school too. I was real active doing a lot of stuff and with my scout troop and I know I didn't play any sports, but I had a job since the time I was about 15 years old. I mean, I've been hustling, man. I've been working, doing stuff. And was real involved in the music department in my high school. So, all kinds of stuff there. I guess that's where I'm comfortable behind a microphone. But if you're a Gen Xer and you don't feel like that you've had a turn, you don't feel like you have a good voice, when you hear the discussion start talking about millennials, we got to attract the millennials. What are we going to do about millennials? I want you to change the conversation. I want you to change it from millennials. Let's not group everybody or stereotype them by generation. It's not fair to put somebody who's a younger millennial in the same bucket as somebody that's an older millennial. You can say the same thing about any generation. There's a big difference between 18 and 34. There's a huge difference between 34 and 64. It's about life stages. I've got friends right now who have kids going to college. My kid's not even in kindergarten yet. I've started long after a lot of my friends did in starting a family. So some of the experiences they've had, I haven't had yet. some of the challenges I'm having in just balancing, a 2-career household between me and my wife and raising a toddler today. We're dealing with some interesting things. And what's important to us, let me tell you, it's not, can I work 80 hours a week for you, boss? It's, how can I work real hard and get you what you need by being really good at what I'm good at and still have time to go home and cook dinner for my family, pick up my kid, and spend some time with my loved ones. You've got millennials that are up and coming. Let's do this. On your new projects that are coming up, I want you to find some ways to get people engaged. Sit down people across generations. Let's get some experienced people with lesser experienced people working on some projects together. All right. If you're in a management role and you have a chance to guide that, direct that, influence and make it happen, please do that. If not, if you're on the other end of that, then why don't you ask to work with somebody with more experience, even if it's that grumpy old dude that sits at the end of the row there in the one office with the door when nobody else has one. We've got to get this knowledge transferred. There's more to life than, what's the hottest app? I avoided the gamer bug, so I don't really care about game consoles and all that kind of stuff that comes out. But I'm fascinated by technology, and I think it can help us do our jobs better, but there is no substitute for experience. Somebody who can be thinking mindfully of not just what's the opportunity in front of us, but where are the potential things that could go wrong and how could we best position ourselves against them if that were to happen? Not to be overly scared, but to really be in control of where we're headed and what we're doing, and keeping things moving forward in our companies and organizations. You've got as many millennials as you do Gen Xers, but nobody's saying, hey, your Gen Xers are here. They have experience. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I will stand here today as your voice. Gen Xers are here. We've had some experience. We've had the ups and some downs. We understand that we don't know everything, but it's really smart to go ask the people that do. I'm afraid that we've got a generation of people who have come up in a different world, who are very technology savvy, most of them, but not all. I talk about connection with a lot of people, and I will tell you as a general swath, people with less experience in the workforce are much more timid in their face-to-face individual communications with other people. So please do what you can to engage those folks. If that's you, if you're not comfortable speaking in front of people, volunteer to make presentations even when it scares the crap out of you. Make sure that you are doing everything that you can to get involved, to sit down with people that have experience and work on some things that are sort of outside your pay grade. It's okay. Get some knowledge, get some experience, get some things really working in your favor so that when the time comes that you need to step up into those leadership roles, you're ready. Ladies and gentlemen, your Gen Xers are ready. We've been standing by. We've been getting ready for a long time. And for those of you that still have some Gen Xers that have not yet moved into leadership positions, that have not yet stepped up to take more of the load, that are not been given the opportunity, and you're starting to overlook them to cater to the needs of that younger generation, those people with 15 or 20 years less experience that are coming in the door, let me explain to you what's going to happen. They're going to leave because there are people that listen to my show. And people that listen to this show are that square peg that people keep trying to jam in a round hole. And right now that round hole looks like a millennial, and your Gen Xers have about had enough. They've just about had enough. So they're going to leave your organization and go somewhere else and take that knowledge and experience with them to another organization that appreciates them. Or even more importantly, they're going to go out, maybe even form a company that will compete against you because they understand what it means to connect with the people that they really value and how to build those relationships they really want to build. I'm going to leave you that with some food for thought for this week. We'll be back next week with even more good stuff. I've got a number of interviews that are scheduled for this week. I don't know who's going to be in the mix for next week, but let me tell you, it's going to be awesome. We got some cool people, some really cool stuff happening in the next couple of days. And also let me throw out here too, if you really liked what we talked about today, look, just share this message with somebody. I know it's a little different. Thank you for indulging me. It got a little ranty and it went a little longer than I thought I was going to. There's a bridge to the future. Let's make sure that we're engaging people that are not overlooking an entire generation of people that are in our companies and organizations that could really make a difference. I want you to connect with them too. Okay, let's bring everybody into the fold. Yep, we need the millennials. There's some smart folks, really smart folks bringing some new perspectives in the door. and get them involved too. Your Gen Xers understand it. They can help you navigate this. Look, boomers, there's fewer and fewer of you out there, but there's still a lot of you there. There's over 44 million of you out there that haven't retired yet and haven't taken those early retirement packages. I'll be curious to see how those numbers look in another 2 or 3 years. But I want you to be thinking about succession planning. I want you to be thinking about who's really ready to hand over the reins. Do you want to hand your company over to 20-something or an early 30-something person? Or do you think it's time to hand it to somebody in their 40s? Somebody that has a little bit more experience and has seen some ups and downs in the workforce and understand what it means when you have to buckle down and get it done. That's what I got for you this week, Success Chargers. Share the episode with somebody. We'll see you again next week. Thanks. If you enjoyed what you just heard, please post your 5-star review and subscribe to Success Charger today. Your future is waiting.